I.O. I've been going through this, doing videos about I.O. for a year now. I got quite a few of them. I should make a playlist actually now that the album's finally out. But it's finally here. And I gotta say, like, if maybe halfway through this year going through them, I wasn't loving it, you know, at all. Like, I was kind of down on a lot of it. But at the end of the process, or toward the end, it was about 50-50 with the songs. But the thing is, right, now that it's all together in one thing, it's much better. I think there's some of its parts thing in there, but I forget how that goes. But the point is, this is a great album. This is it's the best since So. I'm gonna be one of those guys who just throws out something like that. It's the most accessible for sure. It's way more accessible than Up was. Up, I like. But the things I like about it, kind of Up, are more of its production kind of things. So it has cool sounds, but like when I finished listening to it, and even now, I can't really think about memorable parts of songs. Like with this one, it's like a lot of stuff pops out, especially stuff like Olive Branch and Road to Joy. Is it Olive Branch or is it Olive Tree? It's not Olive Branch. It's Olive Tree. I don't have, like, you know, the track list with me, so I just kind of do this off the top of my head. But I'll throw any relevant things up on the screen. But yeah, those two jump out as like almost 80s kind of stuff. Almost like in the same wheelhouse as Kiss That Frog or like Steam, except better. I think this album as a whole is a better album than Us. Us, you know, I was not really crazy about Us. It has some high points, but also has some meh kind of stuff. This one, now that all the songs are together, hold on, let me get here. I have someone else behind me on the phone talking loud, so I'm trying to concentrate on this. I got someone else doing it. All right. I only talk loud when I do this because I want to make sure I'm heard. But there's other people on the phone, and they'll be having a private conversation. But they, you know, I'm not going to start getting into complaining, man. But they just fucking, they're screaming, and they get the speaker on so you can hear the other person. It's like, fuck off with that. When I have conversations with people, I don't want everyone to know what the fuck I'm talking. Whatever. Focus. Yeah, so I almost killed my ankle. I could have died. So yeah, this is easily the most accessible, and not only just the most accessible, but I think it's the best thing. The only problem I have with this album is the same problem I had when I was reviewing these songs one at a time. Some of the lyrics are a little bit basic for Peter Gabriel, but you know, when you listen to this album all the way through, and I have, admittedly only the Bright Side mix altogether though. I mean, of course I've heard all the tracks, but I've only listened to the Bright Side mix all the way through. I've never heard whatever the third mix is. It's like a third mix, like it's called the, what's it, the in and out mix, the in between mix, I forget what it's called. The only ones I've ever heard were the Bright Side and the Dark Side mixes, and I would listen to each one as they came out. I'd only review usually one of them, but I've been through it. I know them. But I'm liking, I think, from just listening to it, the Bright Side a lot. And when I was doing the singles by themselves, I was more of the Dark Side mix. So it really does change the experience when you hear all this stuff together. You know, it gives you a kind of different perspective on it. It gives you too much fucking perspective. Yeah, it's good to listen to all at once, and it kind of makes me wonder, like, well, I mean, we've talked about it already here, about the various questions about why he did it the way he did. I think, I don't think it's a bad idea for someone who releases records more frequently, but after a 20-year wait is a weird way to go about it. But I think but ultimately, after the dust has settled, I think that was a cool way to release the album. And because it got people to spend more time with each track, because the way things are with most people who listen to streaming, and that's what I do too. I'm no longer a collector of physical media. I was my whole life. I bought all my favorite albums about 10 times in each format, and then deluxe editions, and then tour editions. You know, these days now I just stick to streaming. So when a lot of times when records come out, I listen to them, and then I kind of just forget about them. You know, when it was a physical thing, it was kind of more of a commitment. You know, you go to the store, you buy it, you have it, it sits there, you leave it out maybe for a while so you can have access to it. Now it's like the Stones album came out, a few weeks ago. I kind of forgot about it already. I mean, I don't know how often I'm going to return to it. You know, I mean, this is how it is. So this was kind of cool because it made people kind of sit with the songs more. And if you followed Peter on his Bandcamp thing, he had a whole thing going on over there where if you subscribed, and it wasn't much, it was a small fee. I just never did it because I wasn't interested in putting in the time to delve into each song like this, even though I'm a big fan. He took you through each track, talking about them, offering different mixes of them. And different mixes, that's the other thing about this album that kind of, I don't know how I feel about it still, is that he's given you so many options. It's kind of like, it's a weird feel. Like, you know, I'd kind of rather have the artist, oh, hey little guy, what's up, sir? I'd kind of rather have the artist choose what they want, what they think the defense. It's almost like Peter's famous indecisiveness, you know, as we said before here, has been passed on to the consumer. Others might see it as a good thing. I don't know. I'm on the fence about that. My OCD wants the definitive edition, or the definitive mix. Like if you're listening to Panopticon, for example, which one is the real one? Like I should check what version they use in the videos. I don't know if that has any bearing upon what's more official, but it's an interesting way to do it. Like the song a month kind of rollout, it's an interesting way to go about releasing music. It's yet another kind of interesting angle. Yet again, it's like if he did this more often, releasing albums, I mean, I don't think it'd be much of an issue. I just think I question the, you know, unless, I mean, there's the other side of it too. It's like if this is the last one and he kind of feels like this is the last one, then maybe it's kind of interesting to do it this way. And, you know, for studio albums, it could be the last one. I mean, like 73 or something like that. I mean, you know, gotta be pragmatic about these things. Unless he pulled like I was gonna say, unless he pulled a Prince and has like or a Bowie where they have everything laid out for the future in case they die or whatever. Even though both of those guys didn't die, but that's, you know, that's for my regular videos. But the I listening to it as a whole now all at once, I think it's great. Its strength is when it's together. It was just a weird way to first confront it with these dripped out singles. But yeah, as far as how it sits in the Peter Gabriel canon here, I would say, I mean, it's definitely the best since So. I like it more than Us, which was a little downbeat in a lot of places. It was, you know, that was his divorce album or whatever. And I like it more than Up, which is his I'm Dying album. It's kind of funny because, you know, back in 2002, Up was really a lot about mortality, or at least that's what I got out of it. And there's a lot of that here too. There's a lot of confronting mortality, that it's in a much more hopeful way, a much more upbeat way. And that's the good thing about this album too. There are no like there are no depressing kind of parts. I think Up got that all out of his system, and a little bit of Us as well. things seem to be a bit more happier. There are songs like The Court, which, you know, handle sort of more serious concerns, or Panopticon as well. But there's no heavy ruminations on life and death, or, you know, if he was thinking about that a lot in 2002. Well, shit, we're 20 years later. How's he feel now? It seems like he turned a corner, maybe psychologically, where he's not as moribund about it. Moribund the Burgermeister. Yeah, it's good. I don't know. I mean, I think we've talked to death about each song over the previous year, so I'm not gonna, you know, go too much into each bit. I have my favorites on there. There is a little bit of that Randy Newman-esque thing, which I don't love. It creeps in here and there in some of the slower songs. Playing for Time. There's a little bit Randy Newman-esque in I.O., but it's not enough to, it's not a deal breaker, but I just don't like Randy Newman, you know, and I get it. The sort of whimsical, kind of depressed guy. I know, I get it. It's not my thing. But he does, so that creeps in a little bit, but not bad enough so that it hurts the material. Yeah, how does it rank as far as the pre-So albums? Well, it ain't better than Security. Well, you know, I don't know. This is where it gets into that thing where it's like objective greatness, objective best, and personal favorite. Like I was saying the other night, like I think the objective greatest rock and roll band is Led Zeppelin. Personally, you know, I like Genesis and like Iron Maiden. You know, I'd rather listen to both of those bands than Led Zeppelin. But I recognize Zeppelin as being the greatest. So it's something like that. Like Security, I don't know. It's kind of hard because it was those, to kind of rank an album with an artist stuff from so long ago, it's almost like a different guy. It is really a different guy. And plus, I mean, the way albums are now, it seems something like Security or Melt or even PG3 or the first one, it seems very slight, you know, compared to the newer albums. There's a lot more of it, just time-wise and production-wise. There's a lot more options, and options are bad for Peter usually, because he'll spend a long time trying out every option, and that's why each album gets progressively more and more time between each one. But yeah, like Security, it's over in a minute, or at least it feels that way. The compositions are great, like sort of groundbreaking, that album. He was doing stuff with the Fairlight back then that really no one else was doing. The whole found sounds thing, he's going to like junkyards and, you know, banging on like old heaters or something, recording that sound and then bringing it back and running it through the Fairlight. So he was really experimenting. That was, as much as he was trying to distance himself from what traditional prog rock was in his time with Genesis, that was kind of progressive. I mean, you know, when you're audio recording bits of junk and smashing them together and make beats and sounds, that's pretty cool. He can do all that now so much easier, and I think that's what lends itself to him taking forever to do stuff, because all that kind of stuff is so much easier now with the technology. There's so many options that, I mean, with a mind like Peter's, it's almost a miracle that he brought this thing out at all. You know, he's one of the greats, man, you know. And you know, speaking of Genesis and Peter Gabriel, Steve Hackett, he's got a new tune out, and I don't want to go off subject here, but People of Smoke, I think is a video in the song. That's really good. There's parts in that, of his guitar playing anyway, that sound like hogweed. He's really the only guy that's keeping the Genesis flag flying. I know Mike and the Mechanics have added Genesis songs to their set, but they're cool. They're just a little too lightweight for me. I could never really get into them. But yeah, Peter really, he never kind of flew that flag because he was already past all that a long time ago. It seemed like when he first left them, right, he was doing back in New York City, right, in his set, and he was doing the title track from The Lamb, and I think that's all he ever did. And he did those songs just to fill out his set. It's too bad though, because I mean, I know he wanted to distance himself from them, and he really did effectively. Like, you know, when I was a kid and I would see Peter Gabriel on MTV, I didn't know he was in a band with Bill Collins. That would have been like, what the fuck are you talking about? That Bill Collins and this guy, those weird guy, the Shock the Monkey guy, they were in a band together? What was that called? You know, I mean, he had in the public eye and in the public consciousness divorced himself from them fully, I think. And it's funny, like a lot of the rock snobs, a lot of the, you know, alternative radio station DJs before the word alternative music was being used. In Boston, you'd hear Pete Gabriel often on stations like FNX, WFNX, which was like kind of an alternative, kind of post-punk station, you know, before there really was. They played a lot of fruity stuff too, but he'd get play on there, and they'd never play Genesis on there, you know. So he did kind of divorce himself from them in that way. So maybe it was smart to separate his music from the old Genesis stuff. He did play a snippet of what was it? Can you tell me where my country lies? Said the uniform to his shoes of I want to say the fifth, the first, but it's not. That song, he did a bit of that with Sting when they toured together, and that was a big deal. But I don't know, would he have benefited from mixing Genesis? I don't think he needed him. He obviously didn't, you know. So I'm glad he did his own thing and not listen to me. But, or taken, you know, this idea of doing Genesis songs. But, yeah, the Genesis thing that still kind of grinds my gears is, in 2007, they had a meeting, the five guys from the classic lineup, Hackett, Gabriel, Collins, Rutherford, and Tony, got together to discuss a staging of The Lamb, which they would have taken on tour. By the end of this meeting they had, they couldn't really nail down a time. Peter wasn't really sure what the schedule looked like, and he wasn't able to make a commitment at that point. So the three of them, the three later version of Genesis band, the three-man Genesis, they decided to go on tour just and do the hits, which is cool too. I like that version of Genesis, but there was that moment where we almost had it. And they did have a sort of a reunion in a sense where they all sat together and talked for a couple of documentaries. This happened in the like mid-2000s and later 2000s too, that archive music collection where it featured Genesis songs and stuff from their solo things too. So you heard like Silent Running on the same album with Biko. Kind of interesting, but also the execution of that concept, it could have been done better, I think. But anyway, it's just too bad we didn't get that. But then you think about it, right? Now the 2007 tour that ended up happening with Bill, the three-man Genesis, made a lot of dough. It cleaned up. And a Lamb show, I think, would as well, but I don't think it would have been as big. You know, I don't think they'd be able to play these giant football stadiums with Peter. I mean, that stuff, especially here in America, it wasn't, when it came out, it wasn't over here. It was like a cult status type thing. You know, they didn't get big here until like the late 70s, when he was already long gone. And I don't know, would you do theaters? And then would that be worth it? I think the logistics of the whole thing just didn't make sense. I mean, yeah, I would have liked to have seen it. A lot of people would have liked to have seen it, but it was just too weird. Like, how do you stage that? Where do you put it? I don't know. I can see why they didn't do it, regardless of Peter's schedule or not. You know, I think it would confuse a lot of American fans. Like, they'd do the same thing I did in the late 80s. They'd be like, what? Peter Gabriel was in a band with Phil Collins? You know, it's funny to us because it's like we know this shit, but there's a lot of people that don't, who are the same way now that I was in the 80s. I mean, well, maybe not as much as it was, you know, 10 years ago. I think awareness is much more, you know, the internet. You know, the internet. So yeah, getting back to I.O., it's fucking great. If you're watching this, then you probably already, you know, have heard it, made up your mind about it, how it, like it, don't like it. I think it's great. And I'm looking at the reviews online, and there people are really, really giving it big scores. The word masterpiece, I think, was been tossed around. It was by The Guardian. I think Rolling Stone said that too. Not like either of those fucking things are the benchmark. I don't know, Pitchfork. I don't care what Pitchfork thinks, actually. Fucking nerds, hipster nerds. But yeah, so that's I.O. And this is Long's Drugs. So you know what that means. That means we're going inside to wander around, like the over 50 crowd does. But thanks for dropping by. I know this is yet another music video close to the last one I did, the Geddy Lee one, but you know, this I.O. thing had to be dealt with, so Peter wouldn't keep popping into videos and holding the album up. We get it, Moon Man. Don't blame the teacher, blame the school.